Hi, this is Dr. Gregory Sadler. I'm a professor of philosophy and the president and founder of an educational consulting company called Reason.io, where we put philosophy into practice. I've studied and taught philosophy for over 20 years, and I find that many people run into difficulties reading classic philosophical texts. Sometimes it's the way things are said or how the text is structured. But the concepts themselves are not always that complicated, and that's where I come in. To help students and lifelong learners, I've been producing longer lecture videos and posting them to YouTube. Many viewers say they find them useful. What you're currently watching is part of a new series of shorter videos, each of them focused on one core concept from an important philosophical text. I hope you find it useful as well. Musonius Rufus's lecture number 8 is specifically about whether kings, basileus, should study philosophy or not. And of course, Musonius Rufus is going to say they definitely should, and he's going to provide a lot of arguments for that. And it's taking place within a context in which there is a Syrian king, essentially somebody from a client state of the Romans who he is talking to, and he's telling him why this would be important. But it isn't restricted just to kings or even to what we typically think of as political rulers. I think that this advice that he has to give would apply just as well to anyone who's in charge of some sort of institution or organization. And as he's going to point out in the very end of it, because it's not really how many people you're in charge of. He says, even if he doesn't have many subjects obedient to him, he's not for that reason less kingly. It's enough to rule one's friends or one's wife and children, or for that matter, even just oneself. A physician who attends few patients is no less a physician than the one who attends many if they have skill and experience in healing. So it could apply to all of us, particularly when we're in situations where we exercise some sort of authority or control, even if only over ourselves. Now, he's going to, about the midpoint of this, talk about a certain ideal. He says that it's of the greatest importance for the good king, not just any old king, but a good king, to be faultless, literally without any sort of sin or error, and perfect, teleia in Greek, in both word and action, if they're going to be what he calls a living law. And this is an idea that is found in earlier political philosophy. Aristotle actually talks about a person who's quite good and is sort of like a law unto themselves in the politics. So this is an idea that's been around for quite a while. Affecting good government and harmony, so, ruling people but also bringing them together, suppressing lawlessness and dissension. And then he says, a true imitator of Zeus, the king of the gods, and like him, father of his people. But how could anyone be such a king if they were not endowed with, as he's going to say, a superior nature? So nature, physis, plays a role here. But then you also need the best education, paideia, areste, and the king has to have all of the virtues that are appropriate to a human being. Not just some of the virtues, all of the virtues. And we're going to see a lot of virtue language getting referenced in this. Not just what we could call the capital or the cardinal virtues, but also a lot of the subordinate virtues as well. And so Musonius is going to say, very interestingly, is there any other art that does this better than philosophy? We know that philosophy, rightly understood, not philosophy as an academic subject the way that we typically think of it, but real philosophy as a way of life, and he has in mind Stoic philosophy, is going to provide this sort of education and cultivate the virtues in a person. But he holds out the possibility, there could be some other discipline, some other knowledge, which guides a person's nature to virtue, teaches them to practice and associate with the good. He says, well, then we should place it beside philosophy, compare philosophy with it and see whether it or philosophy is better and more capable of producing a good king. And if there's something that beats philosophy, well, take that, right? But there probably isn't anything like that, Musonius thinks, so you better study philosophy. So there's a very important argument being made there. Now, backtracking a bit to the very beginning of it, he's going to say, listen, what is a king supposed to do? Well, they're supposed to be a protector of their people and also a benefactor, somebody who does good to their people. So if that's the case, there's a lot of knowledge that you're going to require. And you're going to get that from philosophy. So what is this knowledge? Well, you need to know what's good for a human being and what's bad for them. What is advantageous or helpful? What is harmful, right? What is going to be of what value and how to relate these things to each other. And he's going to say distinguishing between good and bad, advantageous and disadvantageous, helpful and harmful. Who actually does that? Well, that's the philosopher. That's part of what we call ethics. And that's actually still the case today. There are a lot of cases where we have a discipline that can say, okay, we want to talk about health. Well, the medical discipline is very good at that. But thinking about what's truly to the advantage of the person, this is why we have medical ethicists who are not only trained in medicine, but in that discipline in philosophy we call ethics. And we could say that about all sorts of other fields as well. So that's important. You also need to avoid being ignorant of many things. You need to understand what conduces to a person's happiness or unhappiness. So a king actually is going to need to study philosophy in order to understand that. And then there's a long discussion of the various virtues. Musonius uses the schema of the four cardinal virtues that we see the Stoics employing a lot. In this case, he's going to talk about justice first. So justice, the king needs to actually know what justice is, which a lot of people don't. We're going to come to that in a moment. And himself or herself be just. It's not enough just to have some theoretical knowledge of it. They actually have to be able to be just. He said, how is this going to happen if they don't understand the nature of justice? Without studying philosophy, that's not actually going to happen. And he says, a lot of people think they know what justice is, but they actually don't. And this is why they disagree and contend with one another about justice. Some saying it's here, others that it's there, right? About things which people have knowledge, there's no difference of opinion, whether something is white or black, hot or cold, soft or hard. All think of the same about them and use the same words. If they actually knew justice, there wouldn't be so many disagreements, right? And he actually says to the king, I'm inclined to think you're not so far from ignorance yourself, so you really ought to study what justice is. Then coming to another important virtue, translated here as self-control, actually better translated as temperance. He says it's essential for the king to exercise temperance over himself, to demand it of his subjects. And so, that's going to produce good effects. If you don't do that, well, it's going to ruin the ruler and the citizen. And how do you do this? Well, you have to curb your desires and you have to discipline yourself. And he says, one can mention no study except philosophy that really develops this. Well, how does it do that? So here we get to some of the components of temperance. Being above on pleasure, hedone, and greed, valuing thrift, that is, the proper use of your resources, as opposed to extravagance, right? Being modest or having, you could say, bashfulness or shame about the right things, a sense of propriety, you could say, having a ordered life in multiple ways. he's going to say as well. So, he mentions discipline, order, courtesy, treating people in the right way, controlling one's tongue. These make a king worthy of reverence, and everybody needs them. Then we also have courage. The king needs to be courageous. They need to be confident, tharos, right? They also need to, have intrepidity and boldness and things like that. How do you get these? Well, by knowing that, first of all, death, and then second, hardships, which include a lot of different things like poverty or, illness or people not liking you, right? Having to do things you don't want to do, that these are not actually evils. If you have that proper mindset, you will, in fact, be able to approach them in the right way. And he says, these are the things that frighten most people. What helps you learn that they're not? Philosophy, right? So if kings are going to possess courage, they have to study philosophy. Finally, he talks about wisdom. And this is interesting, because he doesn't just talk about practical wisdom, prudence, phronesis. He talks about things that literally fall within the scope of using your intellect, your rational faculty properly. And so he talks about a number of different things. I like this phrase, being invincible in reason and able to prevail over disputants by their arguments, just as over their enemies by their arms. When kings are weak in this, they're often misled. They mistake the false for the true, and that is the price of foolishness and ignorance. So what does philosophy actually provide you with? He says, the ability to remain superior to others in debate, distinguish the false from the true, refute the one, and confirm the other. And he says, there are professional speakers, people who are trained in rhetoric, and then they run into an actual philosopher, and the philosopher makes them look like a jackass. They, as we have it here, they are confused and confounded and obliged to contradict themselves. So how can that be the case? The philosophers are superior to them when it comes to wisdom. So you want to be wise, you need to go and study philosophy, right? So he's going to bring this to a near close. The actual close is that remark that I began with at the start, which is you don't have to have a lot of subjects to be kingly in this respect. You could just be ruling over yourself. But he's got this really interesting discussion where he says, listen, if you want to be a good king, not just a king, if you want to be a good ruler, manager, whatever you want it to be, you have to be a good person. You cannot strip these apart from each other and say, well, they're not a good person, but they're actually a good ruler. No, you need to learn how to be a good person and what kind of person will be good. He says the philosopher. And here you might object and say, well, I know a lot of philosophers who aren't good people, and I could say the same myself, right? So the response to that is Musonius is not talking about all philosophers, everybody that we call by that term. He is talking about somebody who is consistently studying practical philosophy and applying it within their life, right? So this kind of person can rule over others and themselves and be worthy of being given that authority. They are axios. And he says, who more than the philosopher? The real philosopher would be more worthy than being given that authority. Why? Well, they are going to have all of these different qualities that are so important to have. So he's going to say it includes being prudent, right? Having practical wisdom, we could say. It includes being temperate. We've already talked about that. High-minded. So this is an important aspect of courage for the Stoics. It's a subordinate virtue. Being a judge, a good judge of what is just and what is fitting or appropriate in a situation. Being effective in making plans. That's part of being wise. Being able to, it says here, being patient in hardship. Literally, in the Greek, it is being enduring. Karteria is the word there, right? So those are all very important. Then he's going to add some other things, 3 of which have to do with courage, and 3 of which have to do with how the Stoics understood justice. So being confident, being fearless, being resolute in the face of hardships, all of that belongs to courage. And then he talks about being beneficent, being good to other people, right? Being helpful to other people as well. And he caps it with a very interesting one. Humane is how we translate it. Philanthropos, literally loving humanity and showing it in your actions. So those are all the different aspects of the virtue that a good king, somebody who's actually fit to rule, is going to need to cultivate. And the question you can ask yourself is, can you get these somewhere else? You might be able to get some of them somewhere else than philosophy, but what other discipline actually teaches you about these, how to get them, what they are, what they look like in real life? Just philosophy, according to Musonius Rufus. So the king needs to study philosophy in order to be a good king.